begin the meeting, or begin this part of the meeting by recognizing Councilmember Chris Williams, who will give us an update on our blight reduction strategies.
Thank you, Mayor. This report summarizes the code enforcement activity for the month of November. During this period, the local code enforcement staff processed 25 new minimum housing complaints, 39 new nuisance complaints, and 149 signs. Additionally, the LCE staff recorded 17 zoning complaints. A total of 58 public nuisance cases were abated, 4 by the city and 54 owner abated. 2 inspectors did work on Saturday morning of 11/20 and collected 44 signs. 3 properties waiting appeal period are to expire. 7 properties waiting on demolitions. There are 4 housing cases with an ordinance passed for demolition waiting for repairs to be completed. 337 Wingo, 216 Underhill, and 1004 Prospect, and 1113 Jefferson. 3 inspector positions remain open and interviews are underway. During the report period, there were 346 total active cases, 213 active minimum housing cases, 30 active public nuisance cases, and 103 active zoning cases. I'll now turn the floor over to Lori.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. We get to bring you another house that was fixed up nicely. We started our case on this one originally in February of 2019. The inspector found that the property was unsecured and started a case on it. And we held a hearing on April 3rd of 2019. We issued an order to repair. It was not a demolition case, but it was an order to repair with a compliance date of May 9th, 2019. The property was in foreclosure for delinquent taxes, so it was foreclosed on December of 2019. The city took possession of the property because no one purchased it. It was then sold on November 20th, and then that property owner turned around and sold it on January 20th of 2021. And then the current owner got permits in August of 2021, and then the certificate of occupancy was just issued in October. And this is what the house had originally looked like. And this is what it looks like now. And it is going to be owner occupied. And apparently they're having a baby. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you and your staff and everyone else who puts in the work to have this turnaround when it comes to property instead of demoing. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Holmes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are pleased to announce that a firm has been selected to undertake our marketing and branding initiative. Civic Brands, a Texas-based firm, has been selected after a very impressive presentation to key members of the task force and staff. We're currently in discussions with them to refine the scope and hoping to have a presentation to the full task force at our December meeting with full council recommendation to come in January. So their stock and trade is branding municipalities, and they are pretty proficient at it. So we're pretty pleased with the selection.
Excellent. Anyone have any questions regarding either of the strategic plan updates? Okay. Hearing none, then I'll move on. Next on the agenda is the public comment period. No one has signed up to speak at the public comment period. Is there anyone here present who would like to speak at the public comment period? Okay. Seeing no one, then we will then move to the Finance Committee portion of the agenda, and that'll be handled by Mayor Pro Tem Britt Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have several items on the consent agenda, but I have a couple orders of business that I've been instructed I need to do because of some changes since our meeting. I'm going to make a motion that item 2021-528, which is a resolution for the sale of city-owned property at 1215 East Green Drive, be taken from the consent agenda and moved to the regular agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to move item 2021-528 out of the consent agenda into the regular agenda. Is there any discussion or comments?
Hold on.
Pardon me, I thought that needed to be removed from the agenda completely. It will not need to be addressed tonight.
But does it not have to come out? I was told it had to go onto the regular agenda and then
For the
get a
vote to
vote to
remove it from
remove
the
it.
agenda. Gotcha. Yes, thank you.
Any questions, comments? Okay. The motion is to move 2021-528 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda items. All those in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes.
So returning back to what is in the consent agenda, the items 2021-524, 2021-525, 2021-526, and item 2021-527. All of these items were discussed at our meeting on Thursday and unanimously approved. So I will present those items inside the consent agenda with a favorable recommendation for approval.
Okay, so there's a motion for approval of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Jones. Is there any discussion on those items? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda finance items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That motion passes.
Under our regular agenda items, item number 2021-523 is consideration of, well, it's a new way of doing a policy that we do, and I felt like it needed the attention of the full body. And it's about bus pass donation policy, and Ms. Angela is here to explain what they're asking.
Good afternoon, everyone. Transit system often gets many requests over the course of the year for free or for us to donate bus passes to them. Oftentimes when I get these requests, I actually forward the request on or have the individual or the agency contact the deputy city manager to get their permission, and then he would give me permission, and then we would give them bus passes. In order to make this something that was transparent and it was clear steps for everyone to follow, we decided to develop a policy. We researched what other transit systems across the country were doing, including Greensboro and Winston-Salem. And Greensboro actually had a policy that we thought was a very good one to model for our agency. Basically, we have created an application that agencies who are nonprofit 501c3s, they would complete the application and then they would be eligible to request $100 of passes at one time, which at our current fare is 80 passes. And they must have an account, not have a balance on any account with the transit system, and have to request it on letterhead, and the most that the transit system would donate over the course of a fiscal year would be $1,000. The $1,000 in passes, though, is not eligible for Federal Transit Administration or NCDOT reimbursement, so these would be all City of High Point funds. All the passes actually have an end date that's already embedded in them, and so there is no chance that an agency can hang on to passes for 10, 15, 20 years. They would actually have to use those passes. We actually have a way to monitor when passes are used, so we will actually know if agencies are using the passes that that we have donated to them. We have not discussed a start date for this policy, and I have several agencies now who are waiting to hear council's action on this policy this evening. And the question is council willing to start this policy immediately upon approval so that agencies who are already requesting passes may request them?
Thank you, Ms. Wines. Everybody understands the request. It wasn't the dollar amount that I think was concerning to finance. It was just a timing and a procedural issue, and wanting you to be aware of what they were asking. So, everybody good with that?
Councilman Moore.
Yes, sir.
Can I inquire?
So looking at the 1,000, this isn't a $1,000 limit per nonprofit. This is $1,000 limit in total. So at most, 10 nonprofits would be able to inquire about that. So at total, we give out 800 passes.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, then I'm going to make a motion that item 2021-523 be approved and effective to be instituted immediately.
Second, Jefferson.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Is there any further discussion?
Just the, make sure, I guess I don't know what the best practices will be to notify the agencies, especially some that, just want to make sure that they get that kind of notification, especially the ones who use it regularly or to that extent that we do reach out.
I will reach back out to the agencies that have already contacted us, and we will make this information available on our website. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, let me know if I got this right. I think I can do it in the order I would like. But my next, I would like to make a motion that item 2021-528, the resolution for the sale of city-owned property at 1215 East Green Drive, be removed from the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to remove item 2021-528. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
The next few items are tied together, and we have our Financial Services Director, Mr. Bobby Fitzjohn, coming forward. And as he does that, and we'll be explaining some things, I have a couple of items that I need to read into the record that will relate to these. The first one states, item 2021-529, bond order authorization, the sale and issuance by the City of High Point, North Carolina of not to exceed $21 million taxable combined enterprise system revenue refunding bond, Series 2021A and A subsequent tax-exempt combined enterprise system revenue refunding bond, and authorizing the execution and delivery of certain documents in connection therewith.
Thank you for your patience to read.
Do you want me to read the second one, or just state that it applies to it?
Well, I think you have to read both because they're voted on
Because they're
separately.
different.
Yeah. Do you want me to just explain them while you're in the middle?
Whatever works best for you. Yes, sir.
So you all have seen these numbers before. It's an item you voted on in November 15th was the original, the initial resolution to allow staff to refund the 2012A and 2014 revenue bonds. We are accomplishing that by issuing the 2021A revenue refunding bonds to Pinnacle Bank. The total savings, cash flow savings is about $142,000 a year for the remainder of the issuance, so through 2032, with a total cash flow savings of $1.6 million. The 2021B revenue bond will save the water sewer system approximately $148,000 a year through 2040, resulting in total cash flow savings of about $2.8 million. And that one is through Truist Bank. So I'll let you continue.
Okay. So for the record, item 2021-530, bond order authorizing the sale and issuance by the City of High Point, North Carolina of not to exceed $32 million taxable combined enterprise system revenue refunding bond, Series 2021B, and a subsequent tax-exempt combined enterprise system revenue refunding bond, and authorizing the execution and delivery of certain documents in connection therewith.
And I apologize if I confused you, but they are two votes. Right.
Okay, so although we talked about it then, we need to vote on it again, right?
Yes.
Okay. So item 2021-529, I move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of approval of item 2021-529, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes.
The next item, 2021-530, dealing with the Series B, I make a favorable recommendation for approval.
So, motion has been made for approval. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Hudson. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approval of item 2021-530, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item, 2021-531, is our annual ask to acknowledge the receipt of the annual comprehensive financial report, which we were afforded to hear about during our prior meeting, and Bobby Fitzjohn's going to take over the balance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. This is the annual acknowledgement of receipt of the, and presentation from our auditor of the fiscal 21 audit report. As we discussed earlier, you have a physical copy by your next meeting. We had a slight printing issue, and then a copy will be made available online within the next day or so, as soon as we get it ready. Tonight we have Dan Goggerty from Cherry Beckert to present an audit summary for you all. And then I do also want to acknowledge Heather Forrest, our Assistant Finance Director. Is definitely her and her team that are able to put this together every year. And it's the third year in a row we've submitted on time to the LGC, and couldn't do it without Heather and the rest of the finance staff. So I will turn it over to Dan Goggerty for the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here today and to go over the results of our audit. The audit is a process that begins all the way back in March, April timeframe and finishes up at the end of October when we issue our financial statements, and then culminates here with being able to present to those in charge of governance the results of the audit procedures. For our today, what we're going to talk about, I just want to remind you all of our role as the external auditor, what we were tasked with presenting with you here in the financial statements, the key results highlights. Then I'm going to talk briefly about kind of our audit procedures around internal controls and significant audit areas. And then a new topic that we haven't discussed in previous years that we're going to be discussing is Local Government Commission, the LGC's financial performance indicators. In the current year, the LGC had identified certain performance indicators that they wanted the auditors to present in front of those in charge of governance each year. This hasn't been a problem for you all as we've had this kind of discussion with you on a year-to-year basis, but there's a lot of other smaller government units that haven't had that discussion with their auditors before, so they were making a kind of a blanket requirement for all government units, and so that's why we'll have to talk about those today. So just start off with our role as external auditor. We perform our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We also perform our audit in accordance with government auditing standards. It's all to provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, and that we can then express an opinion on those financial statements. In terms of our required communications, we are required to communicate any policy changes during the year, any significant estimates that management used as part of the drafting of the financial statements, and then any journal entries that were posted or proposed by our audit. From a key results standpoint, we are providing 4 opinions to you all each year. First opinion is that on the financial statements themselves. Second is on internal controls over financial reporting, also known as the Yellow Book or Government Auditing Standards Report. And then 2 separate letters, one for your federal single audit of grant funds received, and then also one for your state single audit as well. In all 4 cases, we issued unmodified opinion. Unmodified opinion is the highest opinion we can give under our auditing standards. It's also considered or known as a clean opinion. In terms of internal controls, we are looking at internal controls to make sure there's proper segregation of duties and proper just controls in place overall over the financial statements and how information is entered into your accounting system. We found no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in controls as part of our audit. In terms of our single audit, we tested 4 programs this year, 2 which were federal and 2 that were state. The federal programs were the Federal Transit Authority cluster, and that program was tested mostly because you had CARES Act money spent in that funding and was required to be tested in the current year. We also had coronavirus relief funds that we had tested that we were using mostly for payroll-related activities. And then we also have the Furniture Market Transportation grant that we test every 3 years, and then PAL bill, which we almost test almost every year. In all 4 instances, we found no issues that we consider to be non-material or non-material non-compliance or any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses with those programs. They all had clean opinions. For those required communications, we are to communicate that we had no policy changes. There were no current GASBs that were implemented in the current year. You will have ones in next year as you get into the lease standard. From estimate standpoint, we had significant estimates as it relates to your pension and OPEB liabilities, and as actual reports that are completed as a result of those, as well as depreciation, allowance for doubtful accounts, as some other estimates that we're looking at as part of our audit. And then we had no adjusting or past journal entries. What this basically means is the trial balance that was provided to us at the start of the audit, what we use to develop and test our audit procedures on, is what you see, what you're going to see in the book where you see the actual annual comprehensive financial report. No numbers were changed from our review of the financial statements. Next few slides, just to talk about a little bit of our audit process. From internal control standpoint, we identify significant transaction cycles, obtain an understanding of the controls, walk through the controls to make sure there is proper segregation of duties throughout, and that there is a control in place for those significant cycles, which is mainly your receipts, payroll, and disbursement processes, as well as financial reporting. From a single audit perspective, we are testing not only compliance, but we are testing controls over compliance. That is that not only are you compliant with the grant agreement, but you have controls in place that if you were not compliant, those controls would find an error in the system. And so we found no issues with your issues over compliance or controls with single audit. From a journal entry review, we're required to look at manual journal entries to see that they're for a proper business purpose and were properly approved throughout the year. We had no issues with that testing as well. All journal entries that we had reviewed as part of our sample were properly approved and for a proper business purpose. And from an information technology control standpoint, we provide a questionnaire to management to discuss your high-level IT controls. We aren't looking into the details of your IT structure, but the controls mostly surrounding your financial systems and making sure they're well protected, and make sure that they're in accordance with standards that are out there today. And we found no issues with that as well. Our significant audit areas really mimic our significant transaction cycles. You'll see here it's mostly related to your revenues, expenditures, payroll, cash and investments, and then also your pension and LEOSA and OPEB pension liabilities. So the next couple of slides, this is what I'm going to go over is the new information that you haven't seen in previous presentations from us is from the Local Government Commission performance indicators. So the first indicator they wanted us to present to you all is fund balance available. This number may look a little larger than you would have thought it was based on our previous discussions with management. This includes your debt service fund. Usually what you're being presented with from financial services is usually general fund alone. The LGC allows or requires to use the debt service fund balance as well. So with that, you're at 29%, which is a little over 3 months worth of availability for spending. And you can see here it also has been increasing over the year.
What was the third one they're requiring you to keep in now?
I'm sorry?
You said that it's different than before from what we knew because they're requiring what to be included in?
So what finance would be presenting to you is just the general fund alone.
Right.
The LGC has, to be uniform across all governments, has said to include debt service funds.
Debt service funds, okay.
As well.
Thank you.
The next 2 slides are a quick ratio, which is your a ratio of your current assets to your current liabilities. This first one is on the water sewer, and the next slide is going to be on your electric fund. This is a minimum threshold of a 1.0 is required. You have 3.45 here, so very healthy in terms of what you have available to pay off and your current liabilities. And again, this one for your electric is a 6.68 for the current year versus a 1. Other indicators here, they want us to show you that the water and sewer fund, that you're basically your operating income, excluding your depreciation, but also adding in any debt service principal payments, exceeds zero. And it obviously exceeds zero. It's $17.6 million in positive. And then from an unrestricted cash, which is just another way almost to look at your current ratio, is about 84.66%. Which is, they just say greater than 16%, which is 2 months. And then the same for your electric, but 8.8 million and 50% for that. Other items that are not necessarily financial based, all these financial based, but things that, such as submitting your audit within 5 months of year end, which this was submitted as of 10/31. So you were in compliance with that. From a budgeted tax levy standpoint, they're making sure that you don't budget your taxes greater than the amounts you collect. So this is saying right now you're at a positive 2%, which means you collected more than you actually had budgeted. Effective pre-audit process to avoid budget violations. You have positive, no issues there noted as part of our audit, reviewing that. No late debt service payments or debt covenant compliance issues noted, and no statutory violations or budget violations on your annual comprehensive financial report. If you had any of these items or any of the items on the past slides that shows negative deterioration of your entity or a negative result, you would then be required, as a majority of you all would have to be required to sign a letter to the LGC discussing how you are going to change that, how you're going to make things improve over time. As a result of everything I've told you, everything's positive. There's nothing for you to respond to the LGC about, but this would be something you would have to do if there was a negative result in the future. So again, just summarize: clean opinions, no adjusting or past entries, good internal controls, no internal control findings, and full cooperation with management. And that's where I do want to thank Bobby, Heather, the team of financial services, that all their time and effort doing this. We did this audit, again, fairly all remotely, again, as we did in the prior year, and they were very helpful in getting us the information we needed timely to get this audit completed and issued by the 31st. So I really want to appreciate them. With that, I'll leave it open if anyone has any questions.
Any comments or questions on this? I think that'll do it. We appreciate you taking the time to be here and appreciate your work. And I would like to echo the thanks from this council to Bobby and Heather and staff. There is a lot of moving parts to this most important segment of what the city does with the city's money, the taxpayers' money. So we're very appreciative for that and very appreciative for the good report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got anything else to add, Bobby?
No, sir.
Okay.
I don't know if you all vote to acknowledge. I'm not sure if that's happened.
Okay,
To acknowledge receipt.
all right.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to make a motion that we acknowledge receipt through item 2021-531 of the annual comprehensive financial report.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Any discussion? Thanks again to staff for all your hard work. All those in favor of approval of this item, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passed.
I think I'm finally done, Mr. Mayor.
You earned your pay tonight, Brett. All right, next on the agenda is one community development item, and for that, we'll go to Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. On recommendation of the staff, I'd like to place item 2021-532 ordinance demolition of dwelling into pending as have a possible new owner who could rehab the property.
There's a motion to place this item in pending. Is there a second? There is a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously, and that item is placed in pending.
That is all.
Okay. All right, so we have several items for planning and development prior to getting to our public hearings. The first one is to adopt our findings of fact and conclusions of law regarding special use case 21-03. For those of you who don't remember, that was the special use permit on Allegheny that we did at the last meeting. Staff, do you have anything to say about this? Okay. Okay, so I will make a motion then to approve that item. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of that item, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. We have two, next we have two different historic marker requests. The first one is regarding Washington Terrace Park.
Good evening. My name is Dave Fensel with the Planning and Development Department. As the mayor just mentioned, we do have two requests tonight for historic roadside markers. The first request is from Yalik's African American Art and Cultural Movement in partnership with Washington Street Historic Preservation Society, Drive High Point Foundation, and Visit High Point for approval of a historic marker to recognize Washington Terrace Park. That's to be located on the north side of the park entrance on Murray Street. And on November 10th, the Historic Preservation Commission unanimously recommended approval of this historic marker request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone with questions? Okay. All right. With that, then I will make a motion for approval of that item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Johnson. Any discussion on this item? Okay. All those in favor of approval of the request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes.
Okay, and the second request is for a historic marker at Green Hill Cemetery. That's to be located on the south side of the cemetery, 350 feet from the corner of Meredith Street and R.C. Baldwin Avenue. This is also a request by Yalik's African American Art and Cultural Movement in partnership with Washington Street Historic Preservation Society, Drive High Point, and Visit High Point. And also on November 10th, the Historic Preservation Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request as well.
Okay. I will make a motion for approval of this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded Councilman Johnson. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approval of this request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Next on the agenda, we get to our public hearing items, and the first public hearing item is annexation case 21-10, Mighty Construction LLC.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Herb Shannon, Senior Planner with the Planning and Development Department. This is a request for annexation case 21-10. The applicant's requesting annexation to have access to city utilities for a parcel located along the north side of Willard Road, just east of White Farms Lane. The applicant's requesting annexation to have access to city utilities. Those services, water and sewer, along with trash and meter readers are already present in this area, as this site is, as you can see, surrounded by the city limits. Those areas outlined in white are lands that are already within the city. Those areas in gray are the remaining unincorporated parcels in this area. This parcel is within the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ area, where the city has zoning and building permit authority. The applicant does not have a corresponding zoning application, as they will develop under the current R3 zoning governing this area. This request does represent a logical progression of the city annexation policy for this area and will not negatively impact the city's ability to provide services. Are there any questions regarding this proposal?
Thank you.
very much. Okay, I will now open the public hearing. Is anyone here from the applicant who would like to speak? Please come forward. Would you like to speak? Okay. Okay. Anyone else who would like to speak either in favor or against this item? Okay, seeing no one, I will make a motion for approval of annexation case 21-10, item 2021-536. Is there a second?
Second.
Public hearing is closed, and we do have a second for that motion. All those in favor, or any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Next item is Ezine Incorporated and Orbaden Inc., zoning map amendment 21-26.
Yes, this is a request to rezone 2 parcels totaling approximately .7 acres. The land, both parcels are currently zoned for heavy industrial, and the applicant's requesting rezoning to the central business district. The first parcel is located along the north side of West Green Drive, approximately 300 feet west of South Lindsay Street. That's 512 and 514 Green Drive, and a parcel at the northeast corner of West Green Drive and Oak Street. That's 520 West Green. The applicant owns the abutting parcel to the north. If you had a chance to visit this area, that's the Pandora Event Center. That facility serves as a bed and breakfast facility. It also hosts special events. The applicant has purchased these 2 abutting properties and desires to add them to their event center. Historically, this block was mainly developed with residential, with some commercial and industrial uses along Green. Over the past years, since the late 1980s, there have been over 13 zoning cases as this area has slowly transformed from to the CB district. The site is within an area that the core city identifies as a showroom district, and that's synonymous with the CB district. And the request to rezone to the CB district is supported by adopted policy guidance for this area. Thus, staff is recommending approval to rezone these parcels from the heavy industrial district to the central business district. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this request at their November public hearing and recommended approval. The commission stated that the request is consistent with adopted policy guidance because the requested CB district is supported by the goals and objectives of the land use plan and the core city plan. They also stated the request is reasonable in the public interest as the CB district is similar and compatible with previous zoning approvals for this area. Are there any questions for this request for rezoning to the CB district? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Okay, public hearing is now open on this item. Is there anyone who would like to speak, or is the applicant or applicant's representative here?
I don't have anything to say. If you have questions, I can come up.
Okay. Anyone have questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor or against this item? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I'll make a motion for approval of this item, and I will adopt the consistency and reasonable statement as presented by staff and the Planning and Zoning Board. Is there a second? There's a second. Any discussion on this item? Okay. All those in favor of approval of zoning map amendment 21-26, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Next on the agenda is High Point Eastchester Investment LLC zoning map amendment 21-27.
Yes, this is a request to rezone a 1 acre parcel located along the south side of Eastchester Drive, approximately 1,000 feet east of North Centennial Street. The site currently has a zoning designation of office institutional, and the applicant is requesting rezoning to a conditional zoning general business district. The applicant's requesting rezoning to allow a major restaurant, that is a restaurant with a drive-through window on this parcel. In conjunction with this application, they provided a corresponding conditional zoning ordinance with conditions pertaining to allowable uses, development, dimensional requirements, and vehicle access. This section of the Eastchester corridor between North Centennial Street and Lasher Drive has a land use designation of of local convenience commercial. That's the area you see outlined in the red, and local convenience commercial. The zoning site abuts the Center Stage Shopping Center, which has a zoning designation of retail center. The applicant has fashioned a conditional zoning ordinance that allows a site to act as the northern terminus of the shopping center. That shopping center was developed in the late 70s, so it doesn't meet all of the standards of the current ordinance. Mainly for a shopping center type use, there is a perimeter buffer of 30 feet that does not exist along the northern boundary of the site. So as to function as the northern boundary of the shopping center, they've offered conditions. First, that there would be a minimum 30-foot setback. That is the perimeter setback for the shopping center or retail center district, and that would be along the northern, eastern, and western boundaries. So this will act as the northern terminus of that shopping center. The proposal for a restaurant for drive-through window, that is permitted on the abutting site, but not on lands to the north. So as to act as a transitional use, they've limited commercial uses. The only allowable GB district use will be the major restaurant use. All other uses will be those allowed in the limited business district. And furthermore, to restrict the intensity, they've offered a condition that the gross floor area of that major restaurant shall not exceed 1,700 square feet. Just to give you an idea of the size compared to other restaurants with drive-through, staff researched previous major restaurants that have developed in the last 3 to 4 years, and they've ranged in size from 3,400 to 4,000 square feet. So that restriction will limit the intensity of development. The request is compatible with the surrounding area based upon the condition for that 30-foot perimeter setback, and they've offered a condition for no direct access to Eastchester Drive. They will take access from the property to the north and provide a stub to the south directly into the shopping center district. As conditioned, the request will act as an extension of the abutting shopping center, and staff is recommending approval. This request was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their November public hearing, and they recommended approval of this request. The commission stated that the request is consistent with adopted policy guidance. As conditioned, the requested CZGB district will not conflict with adopted policy guidance documents at this location. The commission also stated that the request is reasonable and in the public interest because as conditioned, the site will serve as the northern boundary of the abutting RC zone shopping center. It will not be in conflict with the preferred development pattern encouraged by the Eastchester Corridor Plan. That is a brief summary of this request. Are there any questions of staff at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Okay. Public hearing for this item is now open. Is the applicant or applicant's representative here would like to speak? Mr. Lindsay, if you... Okay. Okay, the applicant's here if anyone has any questions. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor or against this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll make a motion for approval of this item, and I'll adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement as presented from the Planning and Zoning Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of this item, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Next, we have a zoning map amendment case 21-28.
Yes, this request is a continuation of the city's comprehensive zoning map amendment project. This is a request to rezone approximately 151 parcels, totaling approximately 36 acres as part of the comprehensive zoning map amendment project. This request focuses on lands within the central core city area along Washington Avenue and south of Leonard Avenue. As we've stated in the past, the purpose of the comprehensive zoning map amendment project is to review and evaluate the zoning of lands throughout the city, identify areas where the zoning is out of sync with existing land use policy, and the primary goal is to remove improper or obsolete zoning that may act as a barrier to development. This project began in 2017, and staff will continue to evaluate these areas and bring you these requests. As far as this current proposal, this was part of a group of cases that council initiated in December of 2020. I would note for the public, this rezoning is not associated with any new development for these areas. There are two areas identified, the first to the north along Washington and the second to the south along south of Leonard Avenue and west of South University Parkway. The area to the north has a combination of land use designation of office and low density residential, and the land south of Leonard Avenue and west of South University Parkway outlined by that heavy black line has a land use designation of low density residential. As far as map one, these parcels along Washington Avenue, They're mostly developed, but there is an existing church and a Masonic lodge. These parcels along this north side of Washington Street are on the outer edge of a single-family neighborhood. The zoning pattern in this area, you have a combination of residential, office institutional, and residential multifamily 16. Staff is proposing a consistent zoning pattern of the transitional office or TO district for this area. The TO district is intended to provide a transition between residential neighborhoods and higher intensity development. That district has standards to ensure office and any limited retail that is permitted is of a scale that will be compatible with that neighborhood. Rezoning to the TO district will not impact the church or the lodge. Churches and religious institutions are permitted use in the TO district. In regards to the lodge, it's currently somewhat non-conforming. This will eliminate the non-conformity that's governing that site, so it actually assists them. So staff is recommending this portion of the Washington Street corridor be rezoned to the TO district. As far as the second part of this request, land south of Leonard Avenue, west of South University Parkway. This subdivision was initially platted in 1905. Based on a review of historical photos, it developed as a single-family subdivision. There are about 141 parcels in this area. 24 are undeveloped, 14 have been converted to duplexes and triplexes, and there's one multifamily. Everything else is single-family dwellings. The concern for this area is the land use plan has it designated as low-density residential, but the zoning is residential multifamily 16. And basically, that could allow multifamily developments, apartment complex, up to 16 units per acre. There was concern with someone going in, buying 2 or 3 lots and trying to shoehorn an apartment complex in the middle of the single-family neighborhood. So staff is recommending rezoning to the R7 district, as that is more compatible with the manner in which this neighborhood has developed. I would note that this site is within the core city, so under the R7 district standards, there is some flexibility. It's not just single-family, duplexes are permitted and triplexes are permitted. The main intent was not to allow any additional multifamily development in this area. I would also note at the intersection of Park, let me see if I can bring that up. At Park and Commerce, you see this conditional use transitional office. Those were from a zoning application in 1990 for an office complex. Only one lot developed. That's just lot right at the corner. That's the only portion that developed with an office use, and they met all the zoning conditions. The other lots that are designated conditional use transitional office, they did not develop. They're still used as a single-family dwelling. So staff is recommending the lot right on the corner that developed with an office use, that the conditional use designation be removed and it just has a transitional office zoning. And those other lots that are designated conditional use transitional office, as they current develop as a single-family dwelling and used as such, that they be rezoned to the R7 district. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this request at their November public hearing and recommended approval. The commission stated that the request is consistent with adopted policy guidance because the zoning map amendments are supported by the land use plan and will ensure that the manner in which development has occurred is consistent for this area, and that the request is reasonable in the public interest. The amendments are needed to remove unneeded restrictions on the properties and to remove conditional use zoning which cannot be amended. That is a quick summary of this zoning application. Are there any questions of staff?
I have a question. It's not necessarily probably for P&Z staff. Perhaps Manager Ferguson could give some clarification. I've got a thought with regards to this Washington Street potential rezoning. Based on some of our conversations about the Coltrane project, I don't imagine what we're shifting to here would maybe have any negative impact on that.
Anyone else with questions for staff?
The R7, you can't have duplex, triplex?
There are specific development standards, but it will allow duplex and triplex when you're within the core city, and this area is all within the core city area.
Okay. So that's basically what's there already is?
It's mostly single family, but there are some duplexes and triplexes in this area.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else with questions for staff? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Okay, public hearing is now open. We're the applicant, and the applicant's spoken. So is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item, either in favor or against? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I will close public hearing, and I'll make a motion for approval of this item, and I will adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement as identical to the P and Z board. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Williams. Any discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Next, Ms. Shannon, is zoning map amendment 21-29.
This is also similar to the previous request as related to the city's comprehensive zoning map amendment project. This specific application focuses on land in the southeast portion of the city along Hickory Chapel Road and Roberts Court. There are 3 specific areas that staff is evaluating. The first area is at 1022 True Lane. This property currently has a zoning of conditional use residential multifamily 16. It's currently developed and serves as a social service use. A group home is located on the site. It obtained zoning approval in 1998. At the time of development, the applicant met all the conditions. There were a few remaining conditions that are now governed by the development ordinance, so staff is proposing to remove the conditional use designation. Rezoning would not affect the group home use. There was a separate special use permit that was approved in 1998 to allow that group home use. Staff is not in any way affecting that. That will stay in place, and it may continue as a group home. So the net result is just remove the conditional use designation and rezone to the RM16 district. The second portion of this request is just south of that location, south of the intersection of Hickory Chapel Road and Randall Street within the Garden Heights subdivision. This subdivision was established in 1955, and between 1960 and the mid-1980s, it developed as a single-family subdivision, but it has a zoning designation of residential multifamily 16. Kind of similar to the previous request, there was concerns about a multifamily development being shoehorned into the middle of this neighborhood, so staff is recommending rezoning to the R5 district as it more accurately reflects the manner in which this area has developed. There's also a map cleanup as part of this project. At the southwestern boundary, this little triangular area here is actually part of this abutting industrial development, so that all the lands associated with that industrial development are in the same district. We're recommending that little triangular area that's be rezoned to LI district, so all of this industrial project is governed by the same LI district zoning. And the final portion of this request is for an existing industrial development at the end of Roberts Lane. This area received zoning approval in the 1980s. At that time, this was known as East Green Street Extension. Triangle Lake Road did not exist at that time, and the primary east-west way to travel was along this roadway from the downtown area to US 29. In the late 1990s, this east-west corridor was realigned. The former Green Street roadway was shifted northward with to Triangle Lake Road, and what was formerly the East Green Extension was renamed to Roberts Street, Roberts Lane, and Hickory Chapel Road. The conditions at that time were pertaining to right-of-way dedication and lot combination that was met at the time of development. There was also a condition regarding road improvements that were completed and an agreement to participate in future road improvements and widening. Well, now that Triangle Lake Road is the primary east-west travel corridor, and this property takes access from Roberts Lane from Triangle Lake Road, those conditions are no longer valid. So staff is recommending rezoning from the conditional use light industrial district to light industrial for this property. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed all 3 of these proposals at their November public hearing and recommended approval. The commission stated that the request is consistent with adopted policy guidance because the zoning map amendments are supported by the land use plan and will ensure the manner in which development has occurred is consistent with the zoning in the area. The commission also stated that the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the amendments are needed to remove unneeded restrictions on the properties and to remove the conditional zoning district which cannot be amended. That is a brief summary of these 3 areas lying south of Triangle Lake Road. Are there any questions of staff at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Okay, public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here to speak in favor or against this rezoning case? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Make a motion for approval of this item and adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement of the Planning and Zoning Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hudson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of zoning map amendment case 21-29, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Next, we go into our pending items, and we have the Shamrock PD case, and my understanding is that the parties have agreed to, they would like to have this item continued till the 20th.
That's correct.
That's correct. Public hearing will remain open till the 20th, and so I will make a motion then to continue this item, and I guess we'll keep it in pending through our meeting on December 20th. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the two annexation cases will also need to be continued, so I'll make a motion to also continue annexation case 21-08, to leave the public hearing open till December 20th. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for the continuance. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Next case is the zoning map amendment 21-23, also Shamrock PD. That make a motion to continue that till our December 20th meeting. Public hearing will remain open. Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone, any discussion? Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, general business agenda. We did that one. Well, we did 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I think we did them all.
Well, there was also the plan amendment 21-06, I believe.
I did skip over that one. Okay, yeah, annexation case 2106. Thanks for catching that. Appreciate that. Keep me in line. All right, I'll make a motion for continuing to keep this item in pending, annexation case 21-06 through our December 20th meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. All right, so that's it for planning. We have just a few items on the general business agenda. The first one is the appointment of John Connett, who is a local architect. Many of you know John, Freeman Connett Architects. He's agreed to serve on the Planning and Zoning Board. And also the reappointment of Deborah Davis, David Horn, and Tyler Walsh to the Board of Adjustment. Apparently, we didn't have anybody on the Board of Adjustment whose term had not expired, so we're, we're doing quite a bit of catch-up here. You can see there when their terms will expire, but I will make a motion for approval of the appointment of John Connett and the reappointment of Deborah Davis, David Horn, and Tyler Walsh to the Board of Adjustment. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approval of that item, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, they are appointed. All right, so we have, also, I'm going to need a motion to suspend the rules.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to add the item for appointment to Human Relations Commission.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. This is to suspend the rules. This is to consider the appointment of Giovanni Hood to the Human Relations Commission. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to suspend the rules to add this item, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, so this item has been added, and Councilman Jefferson, I'll give you the floor to speak on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hood has reached out and has applied to serve on the Human Relations Commission. He, his family, and the businesses that they run have done a lot to contribute to our community. He's very passionate about the work of human relations. He's also been in touch with our Human Relations Manager, Mr. McCray. They've had a number of conversations about the potential work that he'll do. Mr. Hood is here, and I don't know if you want to stand up just so we can recognize you while you're here, Mr. Hood. Certainly, we appreciate you for your commitment and for wanting to serve, and I'd like to, at this point, move to appoint him to the Human Relations Commission.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second for the approval of Giovanni Hood to Human Relations Commission. Is there any discussion? Thank you for being willing to serve. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. All right, all we have left are minutes to be approved and adjournment. I'll make a motion then to approve the minutes as, we're not doing that. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Lots going on in the city. Check your event calendars. Lots of things going on for the holiday season. I encourage people to get out, mix around with your neighbors, meet new people. Great time of the year to do that. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add prior to adjournment? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion has been made by the Mayor Pro Tem to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Peters. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? This meeting is now adjourned.